let's look at some examples of Dr. Lori Westfall's task menus. I've only chosen 4 from her book, but she's got a ton more in there if you'd like to peruse the book. The first one is the tic-tac-toe. Right off the bat, it's one of the most recognizable for students. They know how to do a tic-tac-toe. And so it's easy for them to just make a straight line up, down, or diagonally to make their choices. The cons on this one, it takes a little more thinking on the teacher's part to set the standards up correctly on those spots. You want to make sure that the students, no matter which way they go, will hit your teaks. So you need to be very strategic with where you put them, and Dr. Westfall explains all of that in her book. In this tic-tac-toe exemplar, I have listed the teaks before the task title to keep myself honest and make sure I place them where I intended to. You'll also notice that I bullet pointed the instructions and that I'm very explicit with exactly how many sentences or sentence types I would like to see. You might use these to be more successful with the tic-tac-toe menu. The next type of template for the task menus is the 20-50-80. The idea here being that you've got some lower level thinking options for the 20s, some middle processing type thinking questions for the 50s, and then those higher order thinking questions for the 80s. We want to make the choices such that the 80s ones are attractive to the students and not so hard that they don't want to tackle them, but you want to give a nice variety to allow students to engage in a way that's meaningful to them. In this middle school 20-50-80 task menu, you'll notice I dropped it down to 258 because I'm not a math teacher and I didn't want to play with that kind of math for the kids. So I've of course listed the teaks after each task. I have provided the bulk of the tasks in the middle section because those are going to be the grade appropriate thinking skills, while those at the higher level might want to challenge themselves with the 8-point options. In this High School Odyssey 258 project, I actually made it add up to 25 points to again challenge my students. It was an in-class activity and I encouraged them to work on a task, get it checked by me, and then go back and make corrections to earn full points. I also encouraged them to do an additional activity if they wanted to earn extra credit. This task menu is called the game show. Much like Jeopardy, where it has a column header at the top and then they must choose one thing below it. Her charts have points at the bottom and difficulties on the sides, but you'll see in my exemplar that I've modified it a bit to make it easier for both the teacher and student to understand the expectations. In this teacher exemplar for the game show, you'll notice that I removed those points columns at the bottom and on the side. I had a rubric page on the next one for the students to see how to get full credit. In each of these columns, there is a teak listed at the top and then 3 different activities from which to choose. I bolded the title because these titles directly correlated to the file name in Schoology. This was my T4 online learning final project for last spring. Students knew to access the files by those names, or if they hand wrote it, they knew what title to place on it. This last task menu by Lori Westfall, I believe, is called the activity checklist. This is actually a challenge for myself to use this one this year. I flipped through the book and thought it looked really interesting. So you've got a list of activities to complete, and the students have a total point value that they're trying to achieve, and then they can mix and match it themselves. I like this template because it includes a goal planning on the date that you'll be accomplishing these things so that the kids can make their goals and work on holding themselves accountable for their own learning goals. One obstacle to using task menus is often, well, how do I grade it? You know, it's not a test. Projects are just a lot harder to grade. So I've got 3 examples of rubrics to choose from that might help you kind of make more sense of it. And please remember, at any time, if you like anything I have and want a digital editable copy, please just shoot me an email. I will send you everything I have, no problem. So in this one, it's a generic exemplar where I'm looking for just some key concepts that I want them to practice. And then I just put always, sometimes, rarely, and never. This is a way to reduce the amount of words on a traditional rubric, but it's very clear, like if a parent is trying to help a student with their project, it's very clear what's expected of them. The second rubric exemplar is based on Dr. Robert Marzano's learning scales. In this one, we parse out exactly what we want students to do for proficient, and it's highlighted in gray. Now, for our GT students, of course, that might be a private conversation where we have them aiming for that A standard right from the get-go. But here, everything is listed clearly, and then when I grade, I simply highlight what's missing so that the kids know that we're on the same page for their grade earned. This third rubric exemplar is the game show rubric. Here I've listed those same teaks at the top of each column, and then no matter which activity the student chooses, the explanation here below each teaks is the same.